You don't have a discipline problem. You don't have a motivation problem. And you're definitely not lazy. So let me ask you something. Why do you keep doing the exact things you said you would stop? Why do you know what to do and still don't do it? That's the part no one can explain, because it doesn't make sense unless you understand this. You're not failing because you don't know what to do. You're failing because part of you doesn't want to change. And that's where everything begins. It's 2:17 in the morning. Your room is be quiet. Your screen is still glowing. Your goals are right in front of you, clear, simple, possible, and yet you don't move. Not because you're tired, not because you're confused, but because something inside you is pulling you back. You open another tab, you check your phone, you tell yourself, just a minute. But deep down, you know what's happening. You're avoiding not the work, but the version of yourself that the work would force you to become, and that realization changes everything. Because the real problem isn't that you don't want a better life. You do. The real problem is this. There are two versions of you living in the same mind. One of them wants growth, clarity, discipline, control. It sees your potential. It knows exactly who you could become. But the other one wants comfort. It wants what's familiar, what's easy, what's safe. It doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about keeping you the same. And every single day, these two versions of you are fighting, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly in your decisions, in your habits, in the moments no one sees. That's why you feel stuck. Not because you're incapable, but because you're divided. I didn't understand this for a long time. I thought I needed more discipline, more motivation, more willpower. So I tried harder, and the more I tried, the more I failed, until one moment changed everything. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a list of things I said I wanted to do, and for the first time I noticed something uncomfortable. I wasn't confused. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't even tired. I was resisting the work, and the person I would have to become if I actually followed through. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't stuck. I was split between who I was and who I wanted to be, and that split was controlling my life. There's a name for this, but honestly, you don't need the term, because you felt it every time you said, "I'll start tomorrow," every time you broke your own promise. Every time you chose comfort over growth, even when you knew better. That tension you feel, that's not weakness, that's conflict, and conflict demands resolution. So your mind does one of two things. It either pulls you forward or drags you back into who you used to be. Most people get pulled back, not because they're weak, but because they never learned how to end the war. That's what this is about. Not motivation, not hype, but understanding the hidden war inside your mind and learning how to finally end it. Because the moment your identity and your actions align, everything changes. You stop hesitating. You stop overthinking. You stop starting and stopping. You move with clarity, with direction, with control, and for the first time in your life, you're no longer fighting yourself. You're finally on your own side. So if you've ever felt like you're capable of more, but somehow keep holding yourself back, this isn't random. This isn't bad luck. And this is not who you are. This is a pattern. And today, you're going to see it clearly. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you stop being two people, you finally become one. Chapter 1. The hidden split controlling your life. The alarm goes off. 6 a.m. For a brief second, everything is clear. You remember who you said you were going to become. You remember the plan. You remember the promise. And then you hit snooze. That moment seems small, almost insignificant. But that moment, that's where your life starts to go in a direction you didn't intend. Because in that exact second, it's not just you making a decision, it's two versions of you. One of them says, "Get up, this matters. This is who we're becoming." The other one whispers, "Not today, just a little longer." And almost every time you listen to the second one, not because you're weak, not because you don't care, but because part of you is still loyal to the person you used to be, that's the hidden split controlling your life. Most people never see it. They think they're stuck. They think they lack discipline. They think they need more motivation. But the truth is much deeper than that. You're not stuck. You're divided. There's a version of you built from your past, your habits, your comfort zones, your repeated choices. This version is familiar, predict, table safe. It knows how to survive your current life. And then there's another version of you, the one you imagine, late at night. The one who is focused, disciplined, consistent. The one who follows through. Build something meaningful. Become someone you respect. The one you say you want to become. And here's the part that changes everything. Those two versions of you are not working together. They are competing. Every decision you make is a vote, not just for what you do, but for who you are. That's why this feels so frustrating. Because on the surface, it looks like a discipline problem, but underneath it's an identity conflict. I didn't understand this for a long time. I thought I just needed to try harder. More discipline, more structure, more control. So I pushed myself. I created strict schedules, downloaded productivity apps, set goals that looked perfect on paper. And for a few days it worked. I felt focused, in control, different, like I had finally become that version of myself. But then something always happened. I slipped once, then again, and slowly I went back. Same habits, same patterns, same frustration. And that's the part that makes no sense. Because you know what to do. You're not confused. You're not lacking information. So, why can't you follow through? Because you're trying to act like someone you don't yet believe you are. And your mind resists that. Not loudly, not in a way you can clearly see, but quietly. You hesitate, you delay, you tell yourself later, you negotiate, and it feels like laziness. But it's not. It's misalignment. Because when your actions don't match your identity, your brain creates resistance. Not to stop you from growing, but to keep you consistent. Because consistency feels safe, even when it's keeping you stuck. This is how people lose years of their life. Not in one big failure, but in small moments like this. Moments where they choose the familiar version of themselves over the one they want to become. I remember one moment very clearly. I was sitting at my desk. The room was quiet. My laptop was open. The task in front of me was simple, something I could have finished in less than an hour. And yet I sat there for almost 3, switching tabs, checking my phone, thinking about starting, but never starting. And at some point, I stopped, and I asked myself a question that felt uncomfortable. If this were truly who I am, would this feel hard? And the answer was immediate. No, a focused person wouldn't struggle like this. A disciplined person wouldn't hesitate like this, which meant something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't acting like someone who was becoming that person. I was acting like someone still attached to my old identity. And in that moment, everything became clear. I wasn't stuck. I was split. Split between who I was and who I wanted to be. And that split was controlling everything. That's when I understood something that changed everything. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. And if your identity hasn't changed, your results won't either. No matter how motivated you feel, no matter how detailed your plans are, no matter how badly you want it, because wanting something is not the same as believing it's who you are. And until those two align, you will keep feeling this tension, this hesitation, this invisible resistance. So the real question is not, what should I do? You already know that the real question is, who am I being when I make this decision? Because every moment gives you a choice. Reinforce the old version of yourself, or step into the new one. And the shift doesn't happen in one big move. It happens in small moments. The moment you get up when it's easier to stay in bed. The moment you start when you don't feel ready. The moment you follow through when no one is watching. Those moments matter more than anything. Because they are not just actions. They are proof. Proof to your mind that you are becoming someone different. So here's where you start. Not with a massive change. Not with extreme discipline, but with awareness. The next time you hesitate, pause just for a few seconds and ask yourself, who am I acting like right now? Is this my old self or my future self? And what would the person I want to become do next? That small pause changes everything. Because inside that pause, you are no longer reacting. You are choosing. And that's where change begins. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not lacking anything. You're just divided. And the moment you choose one version of yourself, the other begins to disappear. Part 2. Your brain is designed to keep you the same. You wake up the next day. This time, you don't hit snooze. You sit up, you breathe. You tell yourself, today is different. And for a moment, it feels real. You feel in control, focused, clear, but then slowly, something shifts. You reach for your phone just to check something quickly. 5 minutes turn into 20. You tell yourself, you'll start after this, then after something else. And before you realize it, you're back in the same pattern, not fully off track, but not moving forward either. And that's the confusing part, because it doesn't feel like you made a decision to fail. It just happened quietly, suddenly, almost automatically. And that's when most people start blaming themselves. I need more discipline. I need to try harder. I just need to be more consistent. But what if the problem isn't your effort? What if the problem is your brain? Because your brain is not designed to make you successful. It's designed to keep you the same. That's its primary job, to protect you, to conserve energy, to avoid uncertainty. And most importantly, to keep your identity stable, even if that identity is limiting you. This is why change feels so unnatural. Because when you try to become someone new, your brain interprets that as a threat. Not a physical threat, but a psychological one. Because becoming someone new means stepping into the unknown, and unknown is unpredictable. So your brain does what it's supposed to do. It pulls you back, not by force, but by influence. It creates resistance. You start to feel tired, distracted, unmotivated. Not because you actually are, but because your brain is trying to redirect you back to what's familiar. This is where most people misunderstand themselves. They think, I don't want this badly enough. But that's not true. You do want it. The problem is, another part of you wants something else more. It wants comfort. It wants certainty. It wants the version of your life that it already understands, even if that version is smaller than what you're capable of. This is what creates the internal conflict. You want to grow, but your brain wants to stay safe, and safety almost always wins. Because safety feels good in the short term, even when it costs you in the long term. I remember realizing this in a way that completely changed how I saw myself. It wasn't during some big failure. It was during something small. I had planned to work on a project I cared about. Nothing overwhelming, just a few hours of focused work. And I started for about 10 minutes. Then I felt the urge to check something just quickly. And I did then something else. Then something else, and suddenly I was completely out of the flow. Not because I couldn't do the work, but because something in me didn't want to stay in it. And instead of judging myself, I paused and I asked, what is my brain trying to protect right now? And the answer surprised me. It wasn't trying to stop me. It was trying to protect me from discomfort, from effort, from uncertainty, from the pressure of becoming someone new, because staying the same is predictable, and predictability feels safe. That's when I understood something that most people never realize. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of transformation, because transformation requires letting go of the person you've been. And that's uncomfortable even if that person is holding you back. So your brain creates a compromise. It lets you think about change, plan change, even get excited about change. But when it's time to actually become different, it pulls you back gently, quietly, consistently. This is why people stay stuck for years. Not because they don't want more, but because their brain is wired to what already exists. So the real question becomes, how do you change when your brain is designed to resist change? The answer is not force. Because force creates more resistance. The harder you push, the more your brain pushes back. That's why motivation fades. That's why discipline feels exhausting. That's why you keep starting and stopping. Because you're fighting your own system. And you can't win a fight against something that's built into you. So instead of fighting your brain, you have to understand it and work with it, not against it. Start by recognizing this. Your brain is not your enemy. It's just doing its job, but that means you need to give it a new job. Instead of letting it default to comfort, you train it to accept growth as normal, not through big dramatic changes, but through small repeated actions, because your brain learns through evidence, not intention. Every time you act in alignment with the person you want to become, you send a signal. This is who I am now. And over time, your brain starts to believe it, not because you told it to, but because you proved it. This is where everything starts to shift. Because once your brain begins to see your new behavior as normal, it stops resisting it. It stops pulling you back and starts supporting you instead. But that only happens if you stop trying to force massive change all at once and start focusing on something much simpler. Consistency, not intensity. Not perfection, consistency. One action repeated daily until it no longer feels like effort, until it becomes part of who you are. Because the goal is not to win against your brain. The goal is to retrain it, to slowly show it that growth is safe, that change is not a threat, that becoming someone new is actually just becoming who you were meant to be. So the next time you feel resistance, don't panic, don't judge yourself, and don't assume something is wrong with you. Pause and ask yourself, Is this resistance or is this my brain trying to protect me? Because once you see it that way, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself, you stop forcing things, and you start moving differently with awareness, with intention, with control.